Please put your hands together as I invite our speakers to join us on the stage. Just a note, sit in front of the display pictures wherein your name is specified on the screen. I'd like to invite onto the stage Mr. Saurabh Gupta, CTO, FroGo, Frozen Foods, everybody. Please put your hands together. The man with a beautiful smile, Mr. Saurabh, joins us here today. Lovely having you with us, sir. I'd like to invite onto the stage Mr. Deepak Gangadharan, CTO, India One Payments. Please give a big hand for Mr. Deepak joining us here today, everybody. I'd like to invite onto the stage Mr. Dharmesh, Parekh, CIO, Protean e-government technologies. Lovely having you with us, sir. Thank you for your time. तालियों की आवाज़ कहाँ है? सिर्फ आप दे रहे हैं, sir. Thank you. I'd like to invite onto the stage Mr. Satyan, Pathak, CIO and Head of Operations, Societe General Global Solutions Center. I'd now like to invite onto the stage Mr. Nikhil, Vaidya, CTO, BeepKart. Lovely having you with us, Mr. Nikhil. Thank you for joining us here today. I would now like to invite onto the stage the session chair, Mr. Dhanashree Dalal. I'll stand corrected. Miss Dhanashree Dalal, and I'm delighted seeing one lady join us from the time we started. Lovely having you with us, ma'am. Miss Dhanashree Dalal is the Executive Director, Deloitte, India. Ladies and gentlemen, for the speakers and to the session chair, can we all give them a round of applause, please? Dhanashree, ma'am, the stage is all yours. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, all. I hope we are all meeting after break, so woken up. And it's a very interesting topic. And I have a great panel with me from varied background. And yeah, we are basically going to talk about when vendor lock-in is becoming a concern in their respective businesses and how they are dealing with it by either leveraging hybrid cloud or multi-cloud. So with that, I would ask Saurabh the first question to you. You have been leading the FroGo, right? And it's a niche business in itself that you started first of its kind in India. So what were the challenges that you started with? Obviously, you started recently, so you were on cloud. But was there any moment when you felt a vendor lock-in is a concern?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, FroGo Frozen Food is not in Bangalore. So for the crowd here in Bangalore, we are the first one to start the frozen food e-commerce. So we aspire to be the Amazon of frozen food. There are a lot of brands and manufacturers, but we don't get to use those products. So that is the business we are in. Currently, we are in Gurgaon and Delhi. Now coming back to the question which you asked. So see, talking about the startups, from the startups perspective, we all start cloud native, okay? Because the traditional businesses, the vintage legacy businesses, they have something which is on-premise and they follow their own journey and trajectory to move into the cloud. But for a startup, we all start with cloud native, although we do have a lot of data, a lot of customer data, a lot of user data to understand the dynamics of the particular segment and the industry. But having said that, when we start building the products and softwares, it's all cloud native. But there is a point, there's an inflection point that comes where we need to take a call whether to proliferate and diversify our product portfolio into multi-cloud or not. And that comes when you see the workloads growing up. That is one. And of course, the business push plays a very critical role. So either it can be like, say, availability or say the application portability or some type of innovation. Now, very soon when we take a first step into the analytics, there will be HPC computing, and that is when we need to take a call whether our current cloud infrastructure has a sufficient capability to cater to those use cases or not. And if not, then of course that brings a valid use case to switch to the, to adopt the multi-cloud strategy.
So if I say it, that being a startup, obviously innovation is one of your key charter and the business use cases associated to that. So that's where to grow the business, you would basically want to embrace multi-cloud.
Absolutely. Business growth plus the expansion and plus the use cases which are pertinent to the innovation in this particular segment. So right. For us, let me just give you a highlight. We capture the temperature of the storeroom every 5 minutes, right? So my, not just the throughput, but the latency becomes extremely critical, which is not even visible to my end consumers, right? So in order to hold that much of data and run some real-time analytics on certain, say, go back in time and then run analytics and bring out those insights, that will require, a high performance computing, which could be, which would, in our case, we wouldn't suggest that go for the hybrid, but yes, multi-cloud could become an answer to these things from the innovation standpoint.
Absolutely. Satyan, I'll come to you, and I know you are leading the Global Solution Center for Societe, Generale, and there is a huge team which is sitting in India serving the bank across the countries. So what are the key considerations that you take into account when you want to basically host an application? And how do you decide whether you want to be hybrid, cloud native, or you want to have a multi-cloud?
So thank you for the question, and good evening to all the audience. It's great being here. So maybe the big picture. So Societe Generale, we are one of the leading European financial services, present in 66 countries. Each day we interact with 25 million of our clients. For the investment banking scope that I work in, we have close to 1,000 plus applications. So unlike a startup, we already have a lot of workloads within our own data centers, right? So when we started our cloud journey, we looked at this from two different lenses, right? The first lens being, what is our target, what is the strategy, and where we want to go. And the second lens being, what is the constraints that we have given the banking business that we are in. So from where we want to go, what was important for us is to have an infrastructure that is agile, that is nimble, that is able to scale to the demands of our business, right? And it was also important, rather than having silos of areas where we are able to accelerate very fast using agile methodology, but is to complete from the time we get requirements until the time we push our product into production. We wanted that level of agility from the requirements, right? So that's where we wanted to go. The second consideration was clearly from being a banking industry, we are heavily regulated. And from a regulation perspective, there are a lot of requirements where we need to, in a way, process lots and lots of data. And our current infrastructure was not able to cope up with that. So that was the second case. And when I talk about constraints, we also had to keep a lot of constraints in mind. The first constraint was from a data eligibility perspective. And what I mean by that is, can I host this data onto a public cloud, right? There's a lot of data from a banking perspective, which we cannot host on cloud. And there is data that we can host on cloud, right? As an example, the data around trades, around positions, around all the inventory we're able to host. Whereas any personal data, be it from a retail client or be it from an investment banking client, we're not able to host, right? So those were some of the constraints. We also had constraints from a latency perspective. There are trading applications. There are platforms that manage all the negotiations. They cannot be hosted onto the cloud because we need almost like a microsecond kind of latency, right? So keeping where we want to go from a vision perspective and keeping the constraints in mind, we chose what's the hybrid cloud approach, meaning we still host our applications in what we call as the next generation of private cloud, which gives many of the features of the public cloud, but takes care of some of the constraints that we have as a banking industry. And we go to public cloud wherever there is a business case for us to go to public cloud, where we need very quick experimentation, we need a quick time to market for our products, where we see that our competitors are able to go there, they're able to create new partnerships. We go to public cloud. We also wanted to innovate, move from the traditional banking, right, as you all know, to more of banking as a service, right? And maybe even extend a bit beyond to go to banking within a marketplace, right? Where either we participate in a marketplace or where we create a new marketplace for other banks to come and actually collaborate with us. So in short, we are on a hybrid cloud journey, and that's the strategy that we have been embarking for the last few years.
Thanks, Satyan. So Nikhil, I'll come to you, and I know you're leading, playing this role of CTO for BeepKart, which is a used two-wheeler company. So one is, again, a recent startup, and you must have started your journey with cloud. So what are the key challenges that you got into when you started your cloud journey? I mean, as obviously given you the faster platform, but what were the key challenges that you looked into, and then when the tipping point came in wherein you thought of moving to another public cloud other than the one which you started with?
Right. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So, see, when you are a startup, right? When you're early stage startup, the obviously time is the most critical thing for you, right? Every time you always think like you want to hit the ground running. You can't do any. So that's the reason it's a pretty obvious choice for any startup to go for this either AWS or GCP or Azure, because you don't have to do a lot of setup around the on-prem and all those. And specifically, it also depends upon the nature of your business as well. As Satyan rightly called out, like we are not into the business where we have to, regulatory part of it, key data has to reside at a specific center. So that is the reason it's a combination of all these things. It depends, like, and basis that it makes obvious choice. You'd go for either AWS, GCP, or any other of these clouds. So far it actually worked for us in this specific space because, at the early stage, the number of applications or the functions you have are very limited actually, right? So truly at this stage, it actually doesn't matter to think about the multiple stuff. So that is the reason mostly initially we opted for that, and it worked pretty well so far. Obviously, yeah, I mean.
Yeah. So one additional question, because time to market is of a critical essence for you. Did you go with the cloud native managed services in your solution, or are you playing it cloud agnostic at the moment?
So see, initially at the early stage of the company, we were more like a cloud native only. We didn't thought about, because to keep our cloud architecture also simplify and not to have any additional administrative overhead also. But now we are into, like we are an early stage company. So generally, so that is where now we have started. So during the bootstrap phase, we didn't think about any of these things, but now we are an early stage company. We started thinking towards all these things, because generally what happens when you are in a mid stage or the late stage company, then moving towards the hybrid or multi-cloud setup becomes, quite challenging, and from cost perspective, resource perspective, and all those aspects. So that is the reason it's a very strategic call that we are taking right now. Okay, now it's a time where we can start actually looking towards and investing towards a multi-cloud strategy, so that, so from the business angle of it, and obviously from the tech side of you, if I have to say, then it's purely from the use cases perspective also. It, as and when you grow, as and where your company grow or your business grows, you come across with the multiple use cases automatically, which enforces you to move towards the, hybrid or the multi-cloud approach as well. So right. That is also one of the things basically.
Thanks, Nikhil. Hi, Dharmesh. So I think coming to you, Protean e-governance, as I understand, is holding all of our PII data. So he's the guy in front of you. So I would definitely want you to explain more about what you do. But basis the understanding, you are actually working on applications which handle billions of scale, which is for all the Indian citizens, the services like NPS and others. So obviously for you, I think hybrid or multi-cloud or even completely on-premise infrastructure is the key. So I would like to understand more from how you approach the strategy for this, and then I'll come to my second question after you answer this.
Yeah, thank you for the question and good evening. Protean eGov technologies may be sounding new to you, but if I tell you we are NSDL e-governance, maybe it will resonate better with you. So we are earlier NSDL e-governance. We have been recasting ourselves as a different company with a lot of diversification. That's how we are calling ourselves Protean e-governance now. So what we do, as you said, we do a lot of public-centric systems we host. We host National Pension System we started in 2008, and now we have more than 5.5 crore accounts, subscribers registered onto it, and which are contributing regularly into it. And as you said, rightly said, there's a lot of data, personal data, confidential data, and we are highly regulated in that sense, just like any bank would be. And apart from that, we are doing tax information network. We have more than 40 crore PAN details, of which we are making it available for all the banks to verify online. We call it online PAN verification. So there is a huge amount of data there. We are doing eKYC, other authentication. We talked about India Stack in the first session. So we are in that space. I know, and we are probably the oldest on the dais, 26 years now, 27th running. We started it as a depository. And as you said, how do we manage, how do we see? I mean, we have been evolving. We have been evolving over a period of time. When we started as a depository, we started on a mainframe. Okay. So that was in 1996, and we had our own data centers, and we have that legacy of having data centers and running those systems as on-premise. But 10 years back, or 12 years back, in about 2012, we took a very bold step, and we said, no more COBOL kicks on mainframe, we should be on the latest systems. So we migrated this running system. That was a big exercise, about 3 to 4 years, and we went on to Java. A running system which was very critical, and it was probably settling the entire countries, doing entire countries settlements, stock settlements. We moved to Java. And parallelly, we had also had developed tax information network system and did the entire e-governance, if I have to say, the e-governance that we see, or the technology that is being put into that government is using today. It actually started with automation of taxes. And that was at that point in time. And with that success, there was enough confidence in government to do all that, the technology piece. Now, we have been moving periodically on, and when we moved on to the depository system onto Java, we actually discovered a lot of things around there where we thought of not having a vendor lock-in specifically because mainframes were very expensive. And we saw that once you make your systems open, the vendor also realizes, and it drops the costs like anything. Right? So that's one advantage we got, and we created our systems and platforms in such a way that we have no vendor lock-in now. Okay, in that sense, when you say no vendor lock-in means it doesn't mean we are using only open source. We are using licensed software, but our applications are developed and architectured in such a way that I can replace anything at any point in time. Okay, so if we have done that, we have changed the entire operating system. So we have become platform agnostics. The only dependency that we have is on people. That is something that we cannot.
That I think every industry.
That's something that we cannot avoid, but that's how we do. And going forward now, as we move along newer applications, we are looking at cloud first, cloud native, and we are going towards cloud. In fact, there is a lot of things which again become, when you renovate all these applications, cloud is something that we'll be looking for.
Sure, thank you. Hi, Deepak. So again, another interesting portfolio, I would say. So India One Payments is leader in white label ATMs. I got to know only during this session discovery. But what I'm keen to know is your ATMs are deployed in Suru region, and that's in Ladakh. So how do you basically marry the cloud benefits with serving customers in that region through your ATMs?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Before I start, kudos to every participant who are here, because it's been very damn cold here. So thank you, guys. I think you did a very good job. To answer that, if you see, as a white label ATM deployer in the country, 90% of our ATM are in Suru region. And it's very important for us to identify the particular place where we can deploy the ATM. To identify that particular place, we have to churn a lot of data, which are available in the public forum, which are released by the financial institutions and other big regulators. We use that data to zero in on a location where we can put our ATM, where the footfall is high. So for that, the computing power which we need, the kind of environment which we need, we cannot host it in our data center, or we need a good partner to do that. Okay.
Right.
Yes, we are multi-cloud. We have partnered with 3 service providers, cloud providers, but unfortunately we don't have a good partner. But even though saying that, we have been able to process our data and find a particular place where basically the footfall are high and we can generate more transactions. And I think going ahead, not only with the identification of the location, also for the loyalty data which we have, which we provide to our customer, we need a much bigger engine to process all those data so that we can service our customers better, which come from a Suru region, who identify all this value in a better way than compared to all the metros. So, yeah.
Sure. So what do you prefer? I mean, while leveraging cloud, are you creating them as cloud native solutions, or are you going towards the
Right
more
now,
agnostic at
yeah,
this moment?
I got your question, what you're trying to ask me, because right now, the way it was going, we are looking at cloud agnostic, because the native ones or the serverless which we are working, everyone has their own problem with that, right? Because of the lock-in, because you are not able to move freely, and serverless, yeah. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. So at the end of the day, the bottom line is you should have a good partner who understands, who gives you a proper solution so that you can set it up properly. Yeah.
Sure. So Dharmesh, I'll come back to you because you have a huge scale of data. It's again a PII data, and most importantly, you must be under tight scrutiny of the RBI regulations and audits and so on and so forth. So to justify all these auditory requirements, how are you leveraging cloud? Are you leveraging cloud first of all? Are you planning to leverage if you are not, and then how everything goes basically?
So, see, one of the biggest challenge in moving to a legacy to a cloud is migration. So when you do that, there is a disruption in the existing business, and whether you can do any, or you can migrate anything without any disruption, I believe is very difficult. Okay. So for the legacy systems, yes, we are still on premise, but there are a lot of things which are getting developed afresh where we are going on cloud. That's number one. The way we deal with the current system, which is on premise, we have ISO 27, all sort of certifications that is required, and I think regulators require it, customers require it, and we keep on, and good, God is great, we have not had any single incidents of any data breach in last 26 years. So we want to continue with that legacy. So when we look at cloud, there are some subtle, very specific areas that we look at, and that is how do we secure cloud. In fact, we ourselves have a cloud, and we are looking at how we put the security features and the manageability features in such a way that we can easily convince the regulators. In fact, government is very much open to using cloud. When regulators are very much open to using cloud, but they have certain regulations that they have put on how to use data, how to keep data, how to keep the data secured. And there's an entire checklist that is supposed to be supposed to be met. And I feel anybody who is using cloud can actually refer to those checklists, whether you are regulated or unregulated. And you can find those checklists on a MATI. And that MATI has a very good, elaborate list of things that should be taken care of. And most of the things, even SEBI recently has come up with a circular saying that any entity in the capital market wants to use a cloud, they should be MATI empaneled. The cloud should be MATI empaneled. So these are some very clear guidelines and things available, and plus our experience of how to manage security is something that we are looking at when we are migrating to cloud.
Sure, thank you. Satyan, last question to you. So do you have any challenges? I mean, you are already on multi-cloud. Any challenges with the data redundancy that's coming along with it?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is, multi-cloud, of course, if it's part of your strategy, you have taken that choice for a specific reason, right? And the reasons could be is you don't want to get logged in by a vendor, right? You, in a way, want to, cherry pick some of the features that are there in a specific, cloud provider. And in, cherry picking, what could happen is your workloads definitely will get, distributed. So there are challenges, of course, like there are, pros. Every decision that you make will have a trade-off. So you will have the benefit of a lot of features across the cloud. You will also have a lot of benefit in terms of, falling back, in terms of, resiliency, in terms of, disaster recovery in case of, some incident. Multi-cloud will also, on the other side, pose you challenges. It could be either from a governance perspective, right? How do you get a visibility of your cost allocation, of your resources? It could give you, I would say, complications in terms of monitoring or getting a visibility across all the layers of your architecture. But then I would say, managing data, like you asked, of course, depending on your use case, you will have to make them, redundant. You will have to copy, you will have to, replicate. Given the cost in terms of, moving data in and data out, one thing for you to keep in mind is there value? Because like someone mentioned earlier, and we face the same, we always think of cloud from a cost perspective, more in terms of storage, more in terms of, compute. What we don't maybe realize is there is a lot of cost in cloud when you either ingress or you move data out of cloud, right? And that's something for you to, I would say, very difficult to also monitor. But keep in mind that as you move data out of cloud, it's easy to get into a relationship, very difficult to come out. So keep that in mind. If there is business value, and I think cloud for us, especially from a banking again, we're not a startup, but we are a very established organization. So there has to be a clear business case. And if the business case warrants you moving data in, data out, you are required to keep your systems scalable, resilient. The notion of cyber security, I think that's very, very big, especially I think in all industries, but including ours. We are required to show to the regulator that no matter what happens, we are able to fall back on a different solution, either in-house or externally hosted, which will require data to be redundant, data to be resilient. And that's the cost, that's a trade-off that you will have to make.
Sure.
Technology-wise, nothing is stopping us from copying data over. I think it's more a business decision.
Yeah, so we are way above time. So thanks for wonderful insights. And just to summarize, I think multi-cloud or hybrid cloud is inevitable in the current business expansions that we are looking at. However, every approach has its pros and cons and needs to be evaluated from a business case perspective. And definitely you need a right partner to help you in this journey. With that, I'll just wrap up the session. Thank you, everyone.